In this lecture, we will learn how to work with pods in Kubernetes. The first thing to create a pod in Kubernetes is to create the YAML file and then apply it to Kubernetes. And Kubernetes will take the configuration file and will create a pod as it is described in the YAML file. So first of all, here we will create a YAML file and we will call it pod.yaml. So here we will put the configuration needed to create a pod. First of all, we will start with the API version. So for a pod object, it should be set to v1. Then we have kind. Here we specify the type of the object that we want to create. We want to create a pod, so it should be set to pod. Next we have the metadata section. Here we can give a name to our pod. So for me, I will call it Nginx pod. We can mention some labels here, but it is not required. Now let's go to the spec section. So here in the spec section, we have a property called containers. And it is an array of containers because in a pod, we can have more than one container. Okay. So here in the containers property, which is an array, here we put the configuration needed for the containers that will be running inside this pod. In our case here, we want to create only one container in this pod. This container will be created using the image Nginx. And I will give it a name. I will call it Nginx container. Okay. If we want to create another container, so here we can set the image for the second container and then we can give it a name. Okay. But in our case here, we want to create only one container using the Nginx image. Now the YAML file is ready. The next step is to apply this YAML file to Kubernetes. So let's open a new terminal. And first of all, I will check if we have any pod running in Kubernetes using kubectl get pods. So we didn't have any pod in the Kubernetes cluster. Now to apply this YAML file to Kubernetes to create the Nginx pod, we use the command kubectl create with the -f option, and then we mention the name of the YAML file, which is pod.yaml. So here Kubernetes tells us that the pod was created successfully. We can verify that using kubectl get pods. And here we see our Nginx pod in the running state, and it is created 11 seconds ago. Okay. And here, this one is the number of containers that are part of this pod. And here, the containers that are ready. Okay. So here, in our case, here we have only one container and it is ready. Okay. If you want, for example, to check the node where this pod is running, we can use the same command. So kubectl get pods, but this time with the white option. So here we get more information about the pod. So for example, here we have the IP address of the pod. Here is the name of the node where this pod is running. So it is Minikube M02 because I am using Minikube to deploy a local Kubernetes cluster. If you want more details about this pod and we want more information about this pod, we can use the command kubectl describe pod, and then we mention the name of the pod, which is Nginx pod here. So here we get a lot of information related to the Nginx pod. So here, for example, we find the name of the pod. We find the node where this pod is running. And here we have labels. So if we set some labels for the pod, we will find them here. And if we scroll down, we find here the containers. So here we have only one container and it is called Nginx container. We find here the name of the image used to create this container, and we have a lot of information. Here in the bottom we find the events related to this pod. Finally, to delete the pod, we can use the command kubectl delete pod. Then we specify the name of the pod, which is Nginx pod. So now the pod was deleted. Can verify that using kubectl get pods. So now there is no pod running in our Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So that's all for now. Thank you very much and see you next time.